Dutch police spent 1 month running the world's largest drug marketplace. And in the process, they technically became criminals themselves while catching 27,000 others. This is the story of Operation Bayonet, perhaps the most morally complex cybercrime investigation ever conducted. When the Dutch National Police took control of Hansa, one of the dark web's most successful marketplaces, they didn't just shut it down. They ran it. They processed drug orders, they facilitated illegal transactions, and they did it all in the name of justice. But was it justice? Or was it the moment law enforcement crossed a line they should never have crossed? By 2017, the dark web had evolved into a sophisticated ecosystem of hidden marketplaces. After the fall of the original Silk Road in 2013, dozens of new markets had emerged, each trying to fill the void left by Ross Ulbricht's pioneering platform. 2 markets dominated this landscape, AlphaBay and Hansa. AlphaBay was the giant, a marketplace so large it dwarfed the original Silk Road. With over 400,000 users and 40,000 vendors, it was essentially Amazon for illegal goods. Drugs, weapons, stolen data, fake documents from OSXO. If it was illegal, AlphaBay sold it. But Hansa was different. Smaller than AlphaBay, but more sophisticated. Founded in 2015 by 2 Dutch administrators who went by the handles The One and Admin, Hansa prided itself on security and reliability. While other markets suffered from scams, exit schemes and security breaches, Hansa maintained a reputation for legitimacy within the illegal economy. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. In a world built on distrust, trustworthiness was the most valuable commodity. The Dutch authorities had been watching Hansa since its inception. The Netherlands, with its liberal drug policies and advanced technological infrastructure, had become an unlikely hub for dark web activity. And Dutch law enforcement had become surprisingly sophisticated in their approach to cybercrime. The investigation began in 2016 when the Dutch National Police, working with the National Prosecutor's Office, launched Operation Bayonet. Their target? Hansa Market and its mysterious administrators. Traditional law enforcement methods wouldn't work here. These weren't street dealers they could follow and arrest. These were digital ghosts, protected by layers of encryption, anonymous networks, and sophisticated operational security. But the Dutch had advantages too. They had some of the world's most advanced cybercrime units. They had legal frameworks that allowed for complex undercover operations. And they had patience. The breakthrough came through meticulous digital forensics and good old-fashioned police work. By analysing blockchain transactions, server logs, and communication patterns, Dutch investigators slowly began to identify the real-world identities behind Hansa's operations. The administrators had made mistakes, small ones, but in the digital world, small mistakes can be fatal. An IP address logged at the wrong time, a Bitcoin transaction that revealed a pattern, a server configuration that left digital fingerprints. By early 2017, Operation Bayonet had identified the 2 main administrators of Hansa Market. The One and Admin weren't anonymous digital phantoms anymore. They were real people with real addresses in the Netherlands. But rather than simply arrest them, the Dutch authorities made a decision that would change the nature of cybercrime investigation forever. They decided to take over the marketplace. On June 20th, 2017, Dutch police simultaneously raided locations across the Netherlands. The One and Admin were arrested, their computers seized, and their digital infrastructure mapped and catalogued. But the arrests weren't announced. The marketplace wasn't shut down. Instead, Dutch authorities began the most complex undercover operation in cybercrime history. They were going to run Hansa themselves. Using the seized servers, captured credentials, and detailed operational knowledge gained from the arrests, Dutch investigators began operating Hansa Market exactly as it had been operated before. Orders were processed. Vendors were approved. Customer service inquiries were answered. The only difference was that now the administrators were wearing badges. What the Dutch police were doing was unprecedented and controversial. They were actively facilitating illegal drug transactions. They were processing orders for cocaine, heroin, and synthetic drugs. They were collecting Bitcoin payments for illegal goods. From a legal standpoint, they were protected by the operational necessities of their undercover investigation. Dutch law allowed for such operations when they served a greater law enforcement purpose. But the moral questions were more complex. Every transaction they processed was a real drug sale. Every Bitcoin payment they accepted was real money exchanging hands for illegal goods. Every package they helped facilitate was real drugs, reaching real users. The police officers involved in the operation later described it as one of the most psychologically challenging assignments of their careers. They were, quite literally, becoming part of the criminal ecosystem they were trying to destroy. Just as Dutch authorities were settling into their new role as dark web drug dealers, events on the other side of the world would transform their operation from a focused investigation into the largest dark web bust in history. On July 5th, 2017, Alexandre Cazès, the administrator of AlphaBay, was arrested in Thailand. AlphaBay, the dark web's largest marketplace, went dark immediately. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of AlphaBay users were looking for a new home, and many of them found their way to Hansa. For the Dutch police, this was simultaneously the best and worst thing that could happen. Their undercover marketplace was about to become the biggest target in the dark web ecosystem while they were still running it. With AlphaBay gone, Hansa's user base exploded. New registrations increased by 800%. Daily transaction volumes tripled. The marketplace that had been a sophisticated operation for thousands of users suddenly became a massive hub for hundreds of thousands. And the Dutch police kept it all running perfectly. They upgraded servers to handle the increased load. They processed the flood of new vendor applications. They responded to customer service inquiries about delayed shipments and payment issues, all while collecting detailed information about every user, every transaction, and every criminal operation using their platform. It was the ultimate honey trap. Users fleeing the collapse of AlphaBay thought they were finding sanctuary in Hansa. In reality, they were walking directly into a police operation. For 1 month, Dutch authorities had unprecedented access to the dark web's criminal ecosystem. They could see everything: who was buying what, where drugs were being shipped, how money was being laundered, and how criminal organizations were structured. They collected data on over 50,000 transactions. They identified over 27,000 users. They mapped vendor networks across continents. They tracked Bitcoin flows through dozens of countries. But perhaps most importantly, they were able to modify the marketplace's security features. They quietly altered the platform's encryption protocols, making it easier to track user activity. They modified the Bitcoin mixing services, allowing them to follow cryptocurrency transactions more easily. Users thought they were protected by Hansa's security features. In reality, those features were now designed to expose them. Running a dark web marketplace isn't just about processing orders. It's about maintaining complex technical infrastructure while preserving operational security. The Dutch team had to maintain Hansa's servers, which were distributed across multiple countries. They had to manage the Tor hidden services that kept the marketplace accessible. They had to maintain the Bitcoin wallets and mixing services that processed payments. They also had to respond to security threats. Other criminal organizations tried to hack Hansa. Law enforcement agencies from other countries tried to infiltrate it. The Dutch had to defend their criminal marketplace from both criminals and their own international law enforcement partners. It was a 24/7 operation involving dozens of officers, technical experts, and legal advisors. Every decision had to be carefully weighed against legal requirements, operational security, and the broader goals of the investigation. While Dutch police were running Hansa, they were also sharing intelligence with law enforcement agencies around the world. The information they were collecting was being used to launch investigations in dozens of countries. But this created diplomatic complexities. How do you tell your international partners that you're currently running a drug marketplace? How do you share intelligence that was collected while actively facilitating illegal activities? The Dutch had to navigate these complexities while maintaining the operational security of their undercover operation. Any leak could compromise the entire investigation and potentially endanger the officers involved. By late July 2017, Dutch authorities had collected enough intelligence to justify ending their undercover operation. They had identified thousands of users, mapped criminal networks, and gathered evidence for hundreds of prosecutions. But they had one more trick up their sleeve. Instead of simply shutting down Hansa, they decided to use their control of the marketplace to deliver a message that would resonate throughout the dark web community. On July 20th, 2017, users logging into Hansa were greeted with a message that would become legendary in cybercrime circles. This marketplace has been seized and is under the control of the Dutch National Police. But the message included something unprecedented: detailed statistics about the operation, how long they had been running it, how many users they had identified, how many transactions they had processed. The message was clear. Nowhere on the dark web was truly safe. If you're finding this incredible story of digital deception as fascinating as we are, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Hacker Stories for more mind-blowing tales from the world of cybersecurity. The seizure of Hansa, combined with the earlier takedown of AlphaBay, effectively ended the first generation of major dark web marketplaces. The two largest platforms, representing the vast majority of dark web commerce, were gone. But the intelligence collected during the Hansa operation continued to generate results for years. The Dutch shared their data with law enforcement agencies in over 30 countries, leading to hundreds of arrests and dozens of major prosecutions. The operation also established new precedents for international cybercrime cooperation. The techniques developed during Operation Bayonet became the blueprint for future dark web investigations. The Hansa operation raised fundamental questions about the limits of law enforcement authority in the digital age. By running a criminal marketplace, had the Dutch police crossed ethical lines? Legal experts remain divided. Supporters argue that the operation was justified by its unprecedented success in identifying and prosecuting dark web criminals. Critics argue that actively facilitating illegal drug transactions crossed a fundamental line between law enforcement and criminal activity. The Dutch courts ultimately supported the operation, ruling that the intelligence gathered was admissible in prosecutions. But the debate continues in legal and ethical circles around the world. The Hansa operation marked the end of the golden age of dark web marketplaces. After the takedowns of AlphaBay and Hansa, the dark web marketplace ecosystem became more fragmented and paranoid. New markets emerged, but they were smaller, more secretive, and more suspicious of users. The era of large, centralized marketplaces was over, replaced by a more distributed and harder-to-monitor ecosystem. The operation also changed how dark web users thought about security. The revelation that law enforcement could successfully operate a marketplace for a month while collecting intelligence destroyed many users' confidence in the anonymity of dark web platforms. Behind the technical complexities and legal questions were real human stories. The Dutch officers who ran Hansa for a month dealt with significant psychological stress. They were processing real drug orders, facilitating real transactions, and knowing that their actions were contributing to real drug sales and real addiction. Several officers involved in the operation later spoke about the moral complexity of their work. They believed in the importance of their mission, but they also struggled with the immediate consequences of their actions. The operation also had impacts on the dark web community. Many users who thought they were safely anonymous found themselves facing criminal charges. Vendors who had built their businesses on dark web platforms suddenly found their operations exposed. The Hansa operation stands as perhaps the most morally complex cybercrime investigation ever conducted. It was undeniably successful, leading to hundreds of arrests and providing unprecedented insights into dark web criminal networks. But it also raised fundamental questions about the nature of law enforcement in the digital age. In a world where the line between legal and illegal activity is increasingly blurred, how far should law enforcement go to catch criminals? The Dutch authorities made a decision that no law enforcement agency had made before. They became criminals to catch criminals. Whether that was justified remains a matter of debate. What isn't debatable is the impact. The Hansa operation changed the dark web forever, established new precedents for international cybercrime cooperation, and demonstrated that even in the most anonymous corners of the internet, law enforcement could find ways to watch, wait, and strike. The honey trap had worked. The question that remains is whether it was worth it. If you found this incredible story of digital deception and moral complexity fascinating, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe to Hacker Stories for more mind-blowing tales from the world of cybersecurity and digital crime. What do you think about the ethical implications of the Hansa operation? Was it justified law enforcement, or did police cross a line they shouldn't have crossed? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives on these complex cyber stories. And here's something that will blow your mind. Next week, we're diving into an even bigger dark web saga, the rise and fall of AlphaBay, the marketplace that was 3 times larger than the original Silk Road. Trust us, you won't want to miss this one. Hit that notification bell right now so you never miss our latest cybersecurity stories. And remember, in the digital world, nothing is ever truly anonymous. See you in the next episode.